Hello and welcome to Tap That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about magic that's probably wrong but fun to talk about. I'm Shauna.
And I'm Leslie.
And we are today bringing you another pre-con deep dive. In this video, we're going to break down all the cards in the deck, talk to you about what this deck is meant to do and how to use it wisely. And if you want to hang around till the end, we will offer you some suggestions for tweaking this deck to make it even better. So without further ado, Leslie, tell us about this deck's commander and what it's meant to do.
Well, this deck's commander is all about, this is a very toxic deck. I'm sure that joke hasn't been made yet. Our commander is Ixhel, the scion of Atraxa, and we all know how much I love Atraxa. So Ixhel will make you feel like you are in hell, we figure. Flying, Vigilance, Toxic 2, which I'll talk about in a minute, and it's a 2/5. And it also has Corrupted, which means something different based on basically an opponent having 3 or more poison counters on cards when they come up. So first of all, Toxic is kind of like Infect, if you're familiar with Infect. But instead of just giving them poison counters, you also get to do the combat damage. So Toxic is whenever a creature does combat damage to a player, that player gets the number of poison counters based on the toxic number. So in this case, Toxic 2, they would get 2 poison counters as well as taking 2 damage. Infect, on the other hand, if it has Infect and it's a 2/5, then they would get 2 poison counters because they took, instead of taking 2 damage. Corrupted, in this case, at the beginning of your end step, each opponent who has 3 or more poison counters, that's the corrupted portion, exiles the top card of their library face down. You may look at and play those cards for as long as they remain in exile, so it's kind of going to do some thievery. And you may spend mana, of course, as it was any color to cast those spells, so it doesn't matter what mana colors you have. So you're going to steal some stuff, you're going to do some poison counters, and for those that don't know, a player may not have any, as soon as a player has 10 poison counters, they lose the game. So that's how you're going to try and win with this deck. You're not going to try and kill their 40 life or anything like that. You're trying to give them 10 poison counters as fast as you can. And people will do everything in their power to kill you first at the table when you're playing with this deck, likely. Because it's flying and vigilance, it's going to do lots of work for you. It's got a 5 butt, so it can block. It can get over their head. It only costs 4 to cast. Get it out early and swing away. Exactly. But we like to break down the decks for you and tell you a little bit more about what the guts look like. So Shauna, why don't you do that for this deck?
Okay, so the deck breakdown here that we've got is we've got our mana curve is pretty fast, actually, technically. It's a pretty perfect curve, but we've got 4 cards at 1 mana cost, 17 at 2, 18 at 3, so there's that aggression there, 9 at 4, 9 at 5, and 8 at 6. So yeah, it's going to be pretty darn fast, which is the whole point. You want to get in there and, like Leslie said, you get those poison counters happening as fast as you can. Yeah, so we've got 21% of the cards are white, 34% are black, and 37% is green, and 23% is the colorless, so like your artifacts and stuff. Yeah, so it's pretty well evenly spaced. White's a little less in this one, again, because white doesn't usually have lots of infect and stuff, but this deck might have a few infect in white, which is kind of crazy. Or not infect, sorry, toxic. It's toxic.
It's very toxic. Well, there's some infect too, but so decks or commander decks always kind of have some key elements that they need in order to be a good commander deck. And the ones that we think are important are ramp removal, card draw, high impact, and then kind of other cards on theme. So we think that you should have a good number of ramp, 15, removal 15, card draw 13, and then your high impact cards 12, and other stuff that will support your deck at around 10. We recommend around 34 land, and of course your commander. So that'll give you your 100. Of course, those could fluctuate depending on what you're building, but this will give you a fairly even base deck to start with, and then you can tweak. Of course, the more high impact cards that will do ramp removal and card draw as well as be high impact would be better. But if you can fit those categories and make sure that you have at least, you know, some good, you don't want to not have enough cards to draw. So that's what we evaluate these decks on. And that's what we're going to break things down with in each of our sections and talk to you about what cards are in this deck. What's our first section?
Our first section is always the ramp and mana generators. The formula calls for 15. This deck has about 12. Some of those are creatures as well, that have that toxic thing. So that's kind of nice. Gives you a 2-for-1 there. So the first one we have is a little mirror convert. So everybody's excited because these little mirror guys are back in this set. It's a 2/1 for 2 artifact creature that has toxic 1. So he is going to help you out with that. Or you can use him to pay 2 life and add a mana of any color. So he's got that versatility there, which is kind of nice.
Good to have some fixing. And then Plague Mirror for 2 is a little 1/1 with Infect. And it can also just add colorless mana. So again, Infect is, instead of doing damage, if they block this, their creature's going to get a -1/-1 counter. If they don't block it, then the player is going to get a poison counter. So they have to make some choices there.
Glistening Sphere, it is a 3 mana cost artifact that enters the battlefield tapped. And that is because when it enters the battlefield, it proliferates. So proliferate, if you're not familiar with it, it is a ability that lets you add add counters, +1 counter to, or not +1 counter, but +1 of any counter that you have out there. Plus, if you want to do it to your opponent. So if this person has a poison counter on them, you might want to do another one on them with this card. You get to pick where you want to give an extra counter to. So I didn't explain that very well, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. So this one has, you can tap it for any mana, if the player is corrupted, in other words, they have more than 3 poison counters, you can tap this for 3 mana of any color, any one color. So yeah, so you want to, it's really going to help you with if they're poisoned. Wow,
Such a good card
today.
I love that one. That's okay. We're just getting into it. We're still drinking our coffee, peeps.
That's right.
Expand the Sphere. We're going to pre-release later. We're very excited. This is a great card. It's a sorcery for 4, 3 and a green. But you get to look at the top 6 cards of your library and put 2 land, which is great, from among them onto the battlefield. This could whiff, which would be sad, but you know, it is what it is. You look at 6, so I will whiff, but everyone else will do just fine. And the rest go on the bottom of your library in random order. If you put, this is a good thing, if you whiff, then you put fewer than 2 lands onto the battlefield. This way, then you get to proliferate any number of times to the difference. So if you miss 2 land, then guess what? You get to proliferate twice. And as Shauna said, that means you get to add counters wherever you want. Could be 1/1 counters, but it's probably going to be poison counters. And so you're going to just give 2 more poison counters to anyone that has them. You proliferate anything you want.
Woohoo!
Love it. Love it. It's a great card.
Yeah. Then we've got good old Cultivate. It's the little sorcery for 2 and a green that lets you search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, and put one of them on the battlefield tapped and the other in your hand. So an excellent ramp card that is included here.
Yep. Good old solid Arcane Signet for 2. Add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. So just some good mana fixing.
Then we've got Commander Sphere. It's the artifact that's for 3 that we all love to have. You add one color of any color in your commander's color identity, or you can sacrifice it and draw a card later on when you're desperately needing one more card.
It does two things. That's a good thing. Chromatic Lantern. This is a great card, of
Oh,
course. Good
so good.
staple for most commander decks because it allows you to add all your land tap for any color.
Mm-hmm.
And this one also adds 1 mana of any color. So not only does it add mana, it fixes all of your mana problems
Yeah.
that you might have.
Yeah.
And it is a 3-color commander. So sometimes there is problems with like, I wish I could cast some stuff, but I don't have white.
Yeah, exactly. Or you need 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
Phyrexian Atlas. This is a new card, I believe. It's a 3 mana cost artifact that lets you add 1 mana of any color. And that whole corrupted thing, whenever it becomes tapped, each opponent who has 3 or more poison counters loses a life. So adding the mana for you and hurting them is always a good thing.
And I feel like every time you do something that's corrupted or you say, oh, corrupted triggers, you should have to go, um,
Yeah,
Fellware
evil,
Stone.
evil.
Evil laugh. I'm buying this deck. I think I've
Mm,
convinced myself that I need to buy this deck.
yeah, I think so.
It's very evil, like me.
Yep.
Fellware Stone for 2. Add 1 mana of any color that a land an opponent controls could produce. So if your land isn't good enough, let's use their land too.
The Golgari Signet. It's nice to have the Signet in this deck. Maybe grab the other one if you want to. The other 2, there would be 2 more that you could grab that would fit in here. This one taps, you pay 1 and it taps for your green and black that you need. So Signets are always awesome to have in commander decks. They're not easy to find.
I think the reason they chose the Golgari one is because the deck is mostly green and black, so that's why they chose that one. And then of course Soul Ring, 2 mana of colorless, 2 colorless mana in 1 fell swoop. Good old Soul Ring.
Yep.
Love it. First turn.
Yep.
Next section.
Our next section is the removal. This is green and black, so you'd expect there's enough removal in this deck. And sure enough, the formula calls for about 15. The deck has 13. Some of it is on creatures, which is even better. Again, that 2 for 1 or 3 or more. Our first card is Canker Bloom for 1 and a green. It's a 3/2, which is really nice. You can pay 1 though and sacrifice it and choose one of these, destroying target artifact, destroy a target enchantment, or you can proliferate. So you don't have to tap that to pay them, like to do those things. So you could swing with it first and then sacrifice it, or sacrifice it in response to something. Mm-hmm. It's just a really good little card to have. It's very aggressive, plus it's useful. Yeah.
Good point to remember to swing with it first and then do it, because I always forget to do that. It's like, oh, I could have swung with that. I should have done that at a different timing. If you've ever watched us on stream, I should have done that. Viridian Corruptor for 3 is a 2/2. This one has Infect. So 2 -1/-1 counters if it blocks, or 2 poison counters if they don't. When Viridian Corruptor enters the battlefield, you get to destroy a target artifact. So again, another good 2 for 1.
Okay. And then Leslie loves the Beast Within card. She uses it on my good stuff all the time. This little instant,
helping you out, giving you a beast.
Yeah, she's so gracious.
So kind.
Destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green beast creature token. You swing at her, and yeah, suddenly your big 10/10 becomes a 3/3, and she kills it.
Yes, I always wait. It's like, yeah, if you're gonna swing, if you're good,
she's good at timing on this one. She's good at timing.
There's consequences for your actions. I'm not gonna do it to be mean, but if you swing at me, I will beast within your creature. Yeah. It's very mortifying, which happens to be our next card for 3. Yeah. I am on point tonight. Today, this morning. Obviously not because I thought it was tonight. Anyway, it's an instant and it's destroy target creature or enchantment. So choices, it's good.
It's good. Putrefy, of course, it's another awesome card to have. And if you got one, this is a good one to put out. It's an instant, destroying target artifact or creature. It can't be regenerated.
Yep. All instants, which is great.
Yep.
Swords to Plowshare, another instant. Exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. So, if you need some life, you can do your own, or you can kill that thing that's swinging at you.
Mm-hmm. Vraska's Fall. This is a new card that we are very excited about to see a couple copies in our pre-release packs, hopefully, because it is an instant for 2 and a black. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker people and gets a poison counter. That is so good.
It's a really good card for 3 mana as a common.
And it's a common.
What?
Yeah.
Scavenging Ooze for 2. It's a little 2/2. This is a little bit of get rid of their graveyard. So you can pay 1, exile target creature from their graveyard. If it's a creature card, you get to put a 1/1 counter on Scavenging Ooze, and you gain 1 life. So your Scavenging Ooze can continue to get bigger, and you can get rid of stuff that they may be able to bring back.
This is a good little board wipe kind of thing, especially against token decks. This Culling Ritual for 2 and a black and a green. It's a sorcery that says destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less. That includes yours, but you get to add a black or green for each permanent destroyed this way. So you get to fill your board again right after you wipe it. It's kind of good.
I did find, on that note, that there's a lot of board wipes. We're getting into our board wipes in this deck. And I guess a note about that is there's not a ton, there is some graveyard recursion, but there's not a ton of graveyard recursion. So you may want to remove some of the board wipes and go for more targeted removal or some of the tweaks that we recommend in the end. Just because it sucks to have a bunch of board wipes in your hand that you don't want to get rid of because you don't want to destroy all your creatures too.
Right.
Destroy all creatures. Fumigate for 5. You gain 1 life for each creature you destroyed this way, so that can bring you back if you need it to.
Same with Phyrexian Rebirth. It's for 4 and 2 white. It's sorcery, destroy all creatures, then create an XX colorless horror artifact creature token where X is the number of creatures destroyed this way. So again, timing is everything.
Yeah. Merciless Eviction for 6 is choose 1, exile all artifacts, exile all creatures, exile all enchantments, or exile all planeswalkers. All great options. I love this versatility of this. And you can really hurt your opponent without hurting yourself, depending on who you're playing against.
Yeah. Phyrexian Outbreak. It's for 2 and a black. A little sorcery that says each opponent gets a poison counter. There you go. Then each creature your opponent's control gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each poison counter its controller has. That could be significant.
Yeah. All right. Our next section is card draw and tutors. Things that get cards into your hand. Our formula, we like to say 13. However, this deck only has 6. Which is unfortunate. We do feel that this deck needs some more card draw, which we'll talk about in our tweaks. Night's Whisper, though, is our first one for 2. When you draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. So there's some punishment there for drawing 2 cards, but that's okay. Your life is a resource.
Painful Truce. It's another really good card. A sorcery for 2 and a black that says converge. You draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the number of colors of mana spent to cast this spell. So you're going to try to spend the 3 so that you can draw 3 cards, 3 colors. Yeah.
Caress of Phyrexia for 5. Target player draws 3 cards, loses 3 life, and gets 3 poison counters. This has some versatility. Will you use it to draw yourself 3 cards? You are going to get 3 poison counters yourself. Now, just so you know, if you have 3 poison counters and you decide to proliferate poison counters, you don't have to choose your own. So you can choose, like, and you know, if I want to be friends with Shauna, I can say, you know what, I'm not going to proliferate your poison counters. If you don't attack me next turn, you can use that as, you know, some political, she hates it, but you know, but you have choices anyway with this card.
Yeah. Then we have Infectious Inquiry for 2 and a black. It's a sorcery as well. You draw 2 cards, lose 2 life, but each opponent gets a poison counter. So that's pretty good.
Feed the Infection for 4. You draw 3 cards and you lose 3 life. Lots of life loss in this deck. This one has Corrupted as well, though. So each opponent who has 3 or more poison counters also then loses 3 lives.
Ouch. Moldervine Reclamation for 3, a black and a green. It's a lovely little enchantment that says whenever a creature you control dies, you gain a life and draw a card. This is a really, really good one.
And that's it. That's it for card draw. That's it.
Yeah. What's our
But
next?
we're on to high impact cards, which is our favorite section because we get to talk about the big, cool stuff.
Woo!
We recommend 12. The deck has 12, so
Woohoo!
good job, Wizards. We actually got this formula from analyzing their deck, so it's okay. Containment Grafter, Phyrexian Druid, 5/5. It has Trample. It has Toxic 1. And whenever one or more creatures you control deals combat damage to one or more players, you also get to proliferate. So if you get through, of course it has Trample, so it's a good chance you're going to get through with any of your creatures. Then you're going to be able to proliferate. It also has Corrupted at the beginning of your end step. If an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, you get to draw a card. So there's your card draw. That could fit into that section as well, so that's good. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So it also has Ramp. So this card has it all. This is a great card.
Definitely. That's only 5 for. It's a 5/5 for 5. So
yeah.
Glissa's Retriever, another good card. It's a 6/6 for 6 that has haste and toxic of 3. Woo. And it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less.
What?
It's going to be possible to get in there right away. It has Corrupted. When it dies, exile it. When you do, return up to X target cards from your graveyard to your hand, where X is the number of opponents who have 3 or more poison counters on them. Whew. There's a little bit of graveyard recursion that you're probably going to be able to do with this deck.
Yes. Yeah. Too bad it's not to the battlefield. Venomous Brutalizer for 4. It's a 4/4, so right on curve. However, it has Toxic 3. And when Venomous Brutalizer enters the battlefield, you may pay 2. If you do, you proliferate. You're going to proliferate. So make sure you have the mana to do that. Use the proliferate as much as you can.
Phyrexian Swarmlord. It's a 4/4 for 6. It has Infect. We talked about this one being high impact or not, but we think that because it has Infect, they're not going to want to. They're going to want to block it. But at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 green Phyrexian insect creature token with Infect for each poison counter your opponents have. So it's just supporting your whole theme here. It costs 6, but you're gonna do a lot with it. So,
and I mean, -4, -1 counters on whatever they block with is great removal anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Vishgraz, the Doom Hive, is another potential commander that they've put in this deck that you could use. It's a 3/3 with Menace and Toxic 1, and when the Doom Hive enters the battlefield, you create 3 1/1 Phyrexian Might artifact creature tokens with Toxic 1, and it gets +1/+1 for each poison counter your opponents have. So it has Menace, is going to have +1/+1 for each poison counters that they have. That's going to keep going up. It's going to be hard for them to block it. It has Toxic itself, and it comes in with more toxic mites. So
Geth Summons. It's a sorcery for 2 and 2 black. Return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's nice. And Corrupted for each opponent who has 3 or more poison counters. As you cast a spell, put up to 1 target creature card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control.
Keep forgetting that this deck steals because it's really about the toxic, but there is like that side benefit of stealing. Wormquake for 6 is Corrupted. It's just Corrupted. Create an XX green Phyrexian Worm creature token with Trample, which is great, and Toxic 1, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast the spell. Then, for each opponent with 3 or more poison counters on it, you create another one of those tokens.
Jeez.
So, mana spent to cast this first is 6, but it has flashback. And you can pay 10 to cast it from your graveyard and create little 10/10s, and then, again, Corrupted poison counters. More 10/10s with Toxic. Crazy.
Gross.
And Trample. It's gross. It's gross.
Worms are always gross. Norn's Choirmaster. It's a 5/4 flying first strike for 5. Whenever a commander you control enters the battlefield or attacks, you get to proliferate. Your commander is going to be attacking. You're gonna, yeah. And this one is going to be attacking as well. So good gosh, it's going to be crazy.
So then there's also a number of good cards that, as we said, when you're playing this deck, people are going to be like, the only way out of this is to kill her fast. Or him, sorry. So Ghostly Prison is a good option for this deck. It's nice that it's included. For 3, creatures can't attack you unless their controller plays 2 for each creature that they control that's attacking you. So that just slows them down from attacking you and lets you sit back and proliferate.
This is why I was shaking my head at this deck, because there are more than one cards that do that in this
I
deck.
know.
So it totally keeps them off your back
Yeah.
while you're totally attacking them. So yeah, it's very annoying. Because here's another one that's in here: Windborn Muse, a 2/3 flying, and players or creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each creature they control that's attacking you. So like you can't even go and attack this person. And there's more.
And there's more. Norn's Annex is the next one. For 3 and 2 Phyrexian white mana, which basically means you can pay 2 life instead of paying white, or you can use white. Creatures can't attack you or planeswalkers you control unless they pay 2 Phyrexian mana for each of those creatures. So that also means that they can use life instead to attack you, but they're going to have to drain their life or pay a white to attack you. It just adds another layer of haha.
So annoying. And Norn's Decree is yet another one for 2 and a white. It's an enchantment, so it's out there all the time. Whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls deals combat damage to you, that opponent gets a poison counter. Bring it, right? Like, oh my, come on. Whenever a player attacks, if one or more players being attacked or poisoned, the attacking player draws a card. It's just
so it benefits them if others are poisoned, and they get to draw a card. So they're going to want to keep attacking, but they don't want to attack you. So it's kind of like a really sneaky goad. Did I mention I'm going to buy this deck? It's so cool. Trailblazer Boots. Equipped creature has non-basic land walk. So talking about getting through with your toxic things, we definitely want to be able to get through with either trample or unblockable in some way, shape, or form. This does that. So if they have a non-basic land, it means that they can't block, and it only has equipped 2. So that's great. I like those.
And our last high impact card is Sorcery, Noxious Assault for 3 and 2 green. Creatures you control get +2/+2 until end of turn. Whenever a creature blocks this turn, its controller gets a poison counter. So this one, basically you play this card. Yeah, they can see it coming. What are they going to do? If they don't block, they die. If they do block, they die.
Yeah. I mean, all you really have to do is swing with a number of creatures that can either kill them, or if they have to block, they have to, like, it's good. They're going to be like, I don't know what to do. Love it. Other creatures on theme, win conditions, specialty cards, things that support your commander deck is our next section. We think you should have around 10. This deck has 18, of course, because it's very theme heavy. That's where all the card draw stuff went. It went to toxic and whatnot, which is not a bad thing in this deck. You want to have lots of toxic. So Bilious Skull Dweller is our first one for 1. It has Death Touch, and it has Toxic 1. It's just a little 1/1, but they may not want to block because they don't want their creature to die. But if they don't block, then they're going to get a poison counter. So I like that. Yeah. It's a good little support.
Yeah, definitely. And then this one here, we hummed and hawed about this card, a Pestilent Siphoner. It's a 1/1 flyer with one that's a 1 and a black that has Toxic 1. So he's going to get in there and do a bunch of work for you potentially. But he might be easy to get rid of, but they're going to have to get rid of him. So he can be doing a lot of work for you.
Yep. Another little beauty, Blight Belly Rat for 2. It's a 2/2. It has Toxic 1, and when it dies, you get to proliferate. So if they do decide to block with it, then you get to hopefully have some poison counters that you can proliferate on them.
Yeah. Blight Mamba, it is a 1/1 for 1 and a green with Infect. So this one does the -1 counters and poison. For 1 and a green, you can regenerate this guy. So they might want to get rid of it, but you can bring it back again. Do it twice.
Yeah. Plague Stinger for 2 is a 1/1 with flying and infect. Again, you're going to fly over their head. You're going to do some poison counters or make them block and get -1 counters.
Goodness. Then we've got the Ivor Claw Mirror. So here's another mirror. It has 1/1 for 2, and it has infect as well. And whenever it becomes blocked, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So they're not going to want to block it. They're going to have to block it. Ugh.
Yep. And another little infect rat. Ivor Rats for 3 is a 2/1. It has infect. And when Ivor Rats enters the battlefield, each player gets a poison counter. So you just, by putting it on the battlefield, give them a poison counter.
Gives one to you too. But...
yeah.
Then we've got Carrying Call. It is a little instant that says create 2 1/1 green Phyrexian insect creature tokens with infect. Going to do a bunch of work for you.
The flavor text on that. The natural order is out of order.
Is out of order.
All right. So then it also has a number of cards that help you proliferate in this deck, which is good. We need that support. We want to get those poison counters up. So Evolution Sage for 3 is a 3/2. It has landfall. So whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you get to proliferate. So fantastic.
Then we have Grateful Apparition. It is a little flying 1/1. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, proliferate. So there you go. He's going to do some work for you.
I love that it includes planeswalker, because I think a lot of times you have to choose, do I want to do it to the player or the planeswalker, and you want to get the planeswalker, but you kind of lose the whatever benefit that you have, but this one doesn't. So I like that.
Yeah.
Contagion Clasp for 2 enters the battlefield. You get to put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Oof. And then you can pay 4 and tap it to proliferate.
Oh gosh, that could potentially do quite a bit for you. Unnatural Restoration. It's a sorcery for 1 and a green. It says return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, and you get to proliferate. Woo.
That Emergence for 5. Put a target creature card from your graveyard onto the battlefield.
A graveyard.
A graveyard, yes. So you can steal from somebody if you like. And then you also get to proliferate after that. So nice. 2 things in 1.
Yeah, so there is a little bit of recursion happening in this deck. Noxious Revival. You get to pay a green or a life, or 2 life, sorry. And you can put a target card from a graveyard on top of its owner's library. Depends what you want to do there.
You probably don't want to give them their card back, but you might.
Maybe.
Well, and sometimes that person has that key piece of removal in their graveyard that you make a deal. I'll give that back to you if you use it on such and such.
Exactly.
So there are times. Mycosynth Fiend for 3 is a 2/2. It gets +1/+1 for each poison counter your opponents have. So the more poison counters they have, the bigger this guy gets.
Ouch. That's totaling them all up. Oh my god. That could be bad. Grafted Exoskeleton for 4. It's a little equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has infect. Whenever it becomes unattached from a permanent, sacrifice that permanent. So you have to sacrifice a creature for it, but why not?
Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Benefits from that too.
That's right.
There were a few lands in this deck that were good, so definitely take a look at the lands. We're not going to go into the lands too much. The formula that we use calls for 34. Of course, you can go up and down a little bit. This deck has 38. We think that's good tweaking room to take out some land, to put in some different cards. There is a Karn's Bastion in this, we noticed, and some other good cards that help you proliferate. So just take a look at the land and make sure you use your land's abilities, because a lot of people forget that they can do that, and they just use their non-basic lands for just land, like me. So thank you for staying with us. We are ready for some tweaks. We are super excited about a bunch of things that we found that would go great in this deck. Of course, these are only options. You wouldn't put them all in. We recommend that you play with your deck a couple times, see what you like about it, and then build on that. But if you would like some of these things, then here are some options. Goliath Hatchery is our first one. We looked for some stuff that does toxic things that maybe isn't in this deck. So this is a 6 mana cost enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you create 2 3/3 green Phyrexian beast creature tokens with toxic 1. So you're getting some toxic creatures. And then it also has, at the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, choose a creature you control, then draw cards equal to the total toxic value. So remember we said this has not very much card draw. This is toxic. You get creatures and you get card draw with this. So I almost think this is a definitely add this card if you get it.
Yeah. Then there's this little vehicle, the Rib Skiff for 4. It is it's a toxic 2, and it's whenever it enters when it enters the battlefield, draw a card, and its crew is only 3, so it's a 4/4. So you could use it to do a lot of good stuff there. Hopefully. Yeah.
And it's got the card draw.
Yeah.
And Complete Devotion is a little instant. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 until the end of turn. If that creature has toxic, you get to draw a card. So again, taking advantage of the fact that you have a lot of toxic in this deck, you get to give something a buff and you get to draw a card.
Yeah. Rotwolf, this card is a little bit hard to find, actually, because it is a 2/2 for 3 and has Infect. And whenever a creature dealt damage by the Rotwolf this turn dies, you may draw a card. So it is a really good little card. Bring it back from the graveyard. Why not?
So Decree of Pain for 8. Destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated, but you get to draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. So lots of card draw on that. Again, it's a board wipe. So if you're going to put this one in, take one of your other ones out. It has cycling, which you can discard this card and draw a card as well. And then when you cycle Decree of Pain, all creatures get -2 until the end of turn. So it could be a pseudo board wipe while you get card draw. So it just kind of takes advantage of all of that.
And then we have a new, I think it's a new a new creature, Kinzu of the Bleak Coven. It's a 5/4 flyer for 5. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may pay 2 life and exile it. If you do, you get to create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 1/1 and has toxic 1. That could
so
be
how
really
does
good.
that work when you copy it, but it says except it's a 1/1? What's it copying?
So for example, let's say you let Rotwolf die, which we just talked about. It's a 2/2. By default, it becomes a 1/1 now, and it has Infect, so it has everything else on the card, except its power and toughness is just the 1/1. So all the other things that are on the card happen. So that's a good one, for example, to have another copy of it. So when it deals damage, you get to draw a card.
Right.
This little
So it
1/1.
would be,
Plus it's
it
toxic
would copy
and
that it's a
Infect.
wolf. It would copy the Infect,
Yeah.
but it would have toxic as well. So it would add those abilities. And
Yeah.
So Rhea Ivor, Bane of Bladehold, is 2 and a white and a black for a 3/4. She has Battle Cry. I don't know why I say it's a she, but they have Battle Cry.
Yeah.
Whenever this creature attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 until the end of turn. So it's a nice little buff up. But at the beginning of combat on your turn, the next time target creature would deal combat damage to one or more players this combat, prevent that damage. If damage is prevented this way, create that many 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature tokens with toxic. So this is going to get you more toxic creatures. It's a little bit hard to understand, but basically you're going to swing with her and whatever else you want to, and then none of those things actually do damage. But let's say you sent 20 damage worth of creatures out, then you would create 20 toxic 1/1s. And if they're blocked or killed or whatever, it doesn't matter. Basically, they're replaced with toxic creatures. So you could create enough creatures that you could then swing in the next time and just, they wouldn't have anything to kill your things. So 10 poison counters, guys. Just 10.
That's all you need. Skrulv Defector Mite. It is a 1/1 for 1 legendary little dude that has Toxic 1 and it can't block. So you're going to want to swing with this thing. But you could pay a life and a white, or a white, I mean, two life. Sorry, I keep forgetting. Phyrexian is 2 life. Choose a color, and another target creature you control gains Toxic 1 and Hexproof from that color until end of turn. It can't be blocked by creatures of that color this turn. So you're going to use this one not for swinging necessarily. You might be using it to get through. You might be using it to protect. Just depends. Yeah, it's a good little card.
And Venerated Rot Priest would be really good in this deck too. It's just a little 1 mana cost 1/2. It has Toxic, but whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, including ones that you use to target it, target opponent gets a poison counter. So maybe you're targeting it to make it fight or do something else. Then that would be considered targeting. If you're targeting one of your creatures to put a 1/1 counter on it, doesn't matter if you're targeting it with a spell or ability. Is it ability? No, target of a spell. It has to be a spell. Target opponent gets a poison counter. So nice way to just kind of keep adding poison counters.
Then we've got Skrulv's Hive. This is a little enchantment for 1 and a white. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and create a little Might artifact creature token with 1 Toxic. And the corrupted thing, as long as an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, your creatures creatures that have Toxic have lifelink. So you're going to be swinging with those anyway. So let's keep alive and let's do some damage. Get some poison counters.
Right. And then no deck would be good without a Tyrannix Rex dinosaur, Phyrexian dinosaur. It is a 8/8 for 7. So it's already good mana curve wise. It can't be countered. It has trample. It has ward 4. It has haste. And it has toxic 4. It does have trample. I was going to say the only thing it doesn't have is trample, but it does have trample.
It does have trample.
So, oh my gosh. If it does combat damage, it's going to be able to swing right away. It's a mythic, so it's going to be hard to find, but it would be fun to play.
Yep. Necrogen Rot Priest. This one might not be so hard to find because it's an uncommon. It's a 1/5 for 4, 2 black and a green, but it has Toxic 2. So 1 damage. Whenever a creature you control with Toxic deals combat damage to a player, that player gets an additional poison counter. Oh,
really good.
That might be kind of nice, right? And you can pay 1 and the black and the green, and target creature you control with Toxic gets Death Touch. You could just threaten them with that, unless it's going to tell you about how you can use Death Touch potentially in this deck to help
because of course, giving it Death Touch last minute is going to make them not want to block unless you have Finn the Fangbearer on the battlefield. I love Finn. He's my buddy. He's a 2 mana cost 1/3 with Death Touch. And whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. So there's not a ton of Death Touch in this deck. You would probably either want to add some Death Touch or combine with these 2 cards together to make that work really well. So it's kind of a weak add for this deck, but potentially a good add if you tweak it a little bit differently. I would love to just kind of put it in there and play with it and see if it does anything for me. But
Glissa Sunslayer. It's a 3/3 first strike and Death Touch. So this one might be part of that little team. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you get to choose one. You get to either draw a card, lose a life, who cares? You can destroy target enchantment, helpful, or you can remove up to 3 counters from a target permanent. You could, again, who knows what kind of counters you want to be removing.
Yeah. Well, and we did say that it needs card draw, so that's good.
Yeah.
Like and that would add another Death Touch if you wanted to support your Flynn. So we also thought that some Proliferate would be there is a lot of proliferate in this deck, but
Yeah.
there's some better proliferate out there that you could maybe tweak with. The first one is Staff of Completion for 3. This one gives you lots of options. You can tap it and pay 1 life to destroy a target permanent you own. Tap it and pay 2 life to add 1 mana of any color. You can tap it and pay 3 life to proliferate. Tap it and pay 4 life to draw a card. Or you can pay 5 mana of any color and untap the staff. So you can continue to do that as long as you need to. Gives you the answers when you need. It's just a nice little 3 mana cost artifact to have on the battlefield.
Yeah. It's, if I get this in my pre-release, I am totally playing with it. I don't care. Yeah. Then we've got Sword of Truth and Justice, one of the swords. It's a 3 mana cost equipment. Equipped creature is +2/+2 and has protection from white and from blue. That's nice. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, put a 1/1 counter on a creature you control, then proliferate. So this will help you buff up your dudes and get in there for some damage.
And proliferate. Yawgmoth Thrawn Physician for 4 is a 2/4. It has protection from humans, which won't mean much in this depending on who you're playing against. But you can pay 1 life, sacrifice another creature to put a -1/-1 counter on target creature and draw a card. So give you some card draw. But you can pay 2, discard a card, and proliferate. So towards the end of the game, as you have land in your hand that you don't want to use, you can then use that to discard and proliferate and speed up the win.
Then we've got we were looking at some cards that are just going to let you get through and deal the damage, because it's all about those poison counters, right? So we've got to get through. Rogue's Passage, Leslie's favorite card that drives me crazy. I deliberately put something in so I can destroy one of her lands. This one in particular, because Rogue's Passage lets a target creature not be blocked. So commander damage that she's going to kill me with. No.
Yep. Prowler's Helm. Equipped creature can't be blocked except by walls. Just nice to put some equipment in there that allows things not to be blocked.
Yeah. Manifold Key. This is a little 1 cost artifact that lets you pay to untap another target artifact. Or you can pay 3 and tap this, and target creature can't be blocked this turn. I've played this in quite a few decks, and it's really handy, actually. So. Yeah.
And not that expensive. Like, everyone looks for the expensive cards and only looks at the case for things like this. But these are just not very expensive, good ads. Hot Soup. That's just fun. For 1 mana, equipped creature can't be blocked. Whenever equipped creature is dealt damage, you destroy it. So if they do block, then you're going to destroy. But it's equipped 3 and it can't be blocked. So it's great.
Yeah. So it's going to be hard for them to deal with.
Yeah, they have to do direct damage.
Yeah. Whisper Silk Cloak is a nice little equipment as well for 3, and equipped creature is unblockable and has Shroud. So that means they can't target it, and neither can you, with spells or abilities, but you're going to get in with it, and its equip is only 2. So really, really good.
And then finally, stuff that manipulates poison counters. We already talked about a bunch of good toxic things, but there was a few things that we thought we should add that are just poison counter related. The first one, Ajani, my love, my heart. I love you, Ajani. You are my favorite planeswalker. That has been completed, and I am so sad. Anyways, so Ajani is completed. You reveal, he comes in with 4, you can pay 1, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature or planeswalker card, you can put it into your hand. Otherwise, you may put it on the bottom of your library, so some good tutoring and drawing there. You can -3 him to distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among 3 target creatures. They gain vigilance until the end of turn, which is great. But the thing that helps this deck the most is you get if you can get him to -6, you get an emblem that whenever you cast a creature or planeswalker spell, target opponent gets 2 poison counters. So that's gonna help. If you can get him out, you can get that -6. You're gonna want to kill him pretty fast, which actually takes the heat off you, which is also a good thing.
And your proliferate can be bumping up hit loyalty as well.
Yes.
So you've got proliferate.
Good point.
There. You're going to get to your 6 pretty easily. So, yeah. Now, this is where I'm sad, because I really like Vraska. I've played her in lots of different kinds of decks that I have, and in this set she is completed as well. So we thought include her because she is a 6 loyalty, 6 mana cost. You can pay 2 life to help that out. But her 0 is you draw a card and you lose a life and you proliferate. So this deck, perfect fit. Her -2 is target creature becomes a treasure artifact with sacrifice artifact. You're just making their big thing into a treasure. That's really mean. So it's removal. Her -9, again, you're proliferating. If target player has fewer than 9 poison counters, they get a number of poison counters equal to the difference. So you're going to bump up their poison counters. You're going to proliferate next turn. They're dead.
Yeah.
She's just horrible. But
yeah.
Sad.
And
sad.
her 0 is actually a +1 because you're proliferating, then you'll give her +1.
True.
And you draw a card.
Totally.
It's crazy. Apostle of Invasion was our last kind of thought. It's a 6 mana cost 4/4 with flying, and it has corrupted. As long as an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, Apostle of Invasion has double strike. So just gives you some extra bonuses for having poison counters on things. If you're having trouble proliferating those poison counters, it's a flying 4/4 with double strike, doing 8 damage if it gets through. So it's great.
Yeah. So that's thanks for watching. That's it for this time. We're available on YouTube and Twitch. Feel free to connect with us on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. We'd love to hear how you would tweak this deck, or if you think this deck is degenerate like I do. Help me against Leslie, guys. You gotta help me.
Oh, you would love this deck too. Act all innocent.
Yes, I would. And that's it for this time. And we'll see you next time. And in the meantime,
tap those magic cards and have fun doing it. Bye, guys.
Bye.